Foremost, I'd like to thank Senator Breslin for agreeing to take time off from his very busy schedule to come here today. He has another event following this one. So I'm particularly grateful that you are even staying through the lunch. But before I introduce Senator Breslin, I would like to say one thing, that to all the youngsters who heard Mr. Barrett,
Yes, sir.
Tell you how to go and interact with your people. I would hope that all of you will take it to your heart, because that will get you quite far in life if you just follow all those things that he told you to do. I wish I had heard it when I was 18. Now, Senator Breslin, I think anyone in this room who reads Times Union would know him, even those students who have come from far off other countries. Senator Breslin is in his, I think, 13th term in the New York State Senate, and he has been Deputy Minority Leader of the New York State Senate, and he may very well be coming next January be the Majority Leader as the things are shaping.
Democrats clap for that one.
But I can assure you one thing, if he becomes the majority leader, the state will be far better, and the reputation of the New York State Senate and Assembly will really be improved by 1,000-fold, because he's such a gentleman and completely dedicated public servant. You know, I have been seeing him, interacting with him, talking to him over the last several years, and he's always willing to help. That's just incredible. He represents what is the 44th New York Senate District, and his district includes where we are sitting and standing right now. It's Latham, Rensselaer, and the entire town of Bethlehem, part of Colony, part of Guilderland, and he has been there for about 26 years. He represents the most important committees, the committees of New York State Senate. He is the ranking member, and probably if he chooses to next year, he will be the chair of the New York State Insurance Committee. And insurance committee is very important. That over the years, we all have heard how the California, the insurance fell apart, people lost their insurance and all that part. New York State insurance, if you have insurance, as I do, you can be confident your life insurance, you will have it, because New York State Insurance Committee is very alert and makes the rules, which there has been no crisis in the insurance industry in the New York State. That's something really very, very important. He also is a member of Higher Education Committee, Bank. There are several others. I can't really remember all of them, but he is a member of all the important committees of the New York State Senate. Especially important to him is health. Although you are not in the member of the health committee now, are you?
No. It's insurance related to health.
Oh, insurance related to, oh yes. That's what I always talk to him about Obamacare and all those things, and he's always very passionate about providing the health care to people. So, overall, Senator Breslin, who is a lifetime resident of Albany, he went to his school in here, he practiced law, he got his law degree from University of Toledo, and practiced law in here. I think he still is a member of a law firm, and has done so much for all of us here that I think we should all be very, very grateful to him for his services, and I hope he will be the majority leader next January. With that, I will give you Senator Breslin. Thank you.
for such a wonderful introduction. And I'm just so happy to be here, and I look around, I see so many friends from different occasions throughout our community, and I think it's a tribute to you, your involvement in the community. For very diverse subjects and coming together. It's a blessing for me to be here. And I apologize because one of my predilections is to always be early. And when I'm late, I feel so guilty about it. But I had the opportunity to come from a different place, and I have certificates that were in my office, which was in the opposite direction, so I apologize. But as I look down and I see so many schools represented here, and I thought about how I could connect that, at least to my family, a little bit. I look at the University of Albany, where my wife has a graduate degree. I look to Cornell, where our youngest child has a degree from, and Northwestern, where my oldest child has a degree from. And I might touch on my oldest child in a second, because I look around. Public service includes volunteerism. Interns include volunteerism, paid or unpaid. They're doing so much work. So I was blessed to have two parents, both of them with graduate degrees, but did public service, so didn't have a great deal of money for their 6 children. But they had something very much more important. They had their example. And I think of my mother, who retired as a school teacher when she was 62, and she lived till 97. And up until the age of 95, every weekday, and I mean every weekday for a full day, she volunteered someplace. Never said a word about it. She would volunteer at St. Peter's Hospital 1 day a week. She would work at LaSalle School for Boys 1 day a week. Hope House 1 day a week. And we all knew the days. Friday she alternated. Every 3rd week she was someplace else. And they gave her an award when she was 95 for volunteering her time for 35 years. And she honestly wasn't suspect at all. She honestly looked at, why would they want to give me an award? And I said, well, Mom, you've really done a lot. And she said, that's what you should do. You live on this earth, it's your obligation. It's not something that's arbitrary, it's your obligation to give back to your community, to participate as many of you do on a daily basis. And quietly, I used to think my parents were so conservative. Quietly, by example, they taught each one of the 6 children, and fortunately, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were able to put things together, and 5 out of the 6 have at least graduate degrees. And more importantly, again, my brother Michael, who's the retired county executive, I wouldn't highlight that he was county executive for 20 years. I'd highlight that he was president of a number of different charitable organizations, including Hospitality House, LaSalle School for Boys, giving his time. Or both my sisters. My sister Marcia, retired school teacher, has been president of Hope House. Her sister, my sister, has been president of another organization. My brother Tommy was president of his high school board. And we've gotten together quietly and talked about why that happened. It happened for 2 reasons, my mother and my father. And we really, the times never got off our block, the street that we were raised on, so I insisted to each of my children they should think globally. They should think a little beyond the block. And I was a little bit too literal, and so my daughter Katie, who went to Northwestern and then called near the end of her 4 years and said, I'd like to go to West Africa in the Peace Corps. And a lot of my friends, which I found out, they were a little suspect. Why would you allow her to go to a dangerous area? And it never entered our mind. We were so proud And so taken by the fact that she went to the poorest country in the world where signs didn't fall. That country's Sierra Leone. And she spent 3 years in a mud hut. In fact, interestingly, she went to a village. They usually teach Peace Corps volunteers. Now again, they're like interns. They teach the language where they're going to be. There was no teaching this because it was a tribal language. So she went to that village, and she was all alone. The closest person who spoke English was 4 hours away, and she was with 300 natives who spoke a tribal language, and she was 20 years old.
Wow.
And I said, "What did you do the first night?" What do you think she said? She cried. And the second night, and the third night. And she said something interesting. She said, "What did you eventually do?" She said, "Well, obviously, I learned the language. But I tried to determine who were the good people and who were the fakers." And life is about determining who the good people are and who the fakers are. Who can we trust and who can we rely on? And I was so taken by her being there, and it was at a time where there was no Skype, there was no internet. She was far from us without a decent way of communicating with her. So I never take vacations. I decided I'm going to Sierra Leone and live in a mud hut for 2 weeks, which everybody said, "Oh boy, he's really lost it now." And I went. And while I was there, I met a young man who was in bare feet, probably Jewish Family Services shorts, and a Catholic Youth Organization t-shirt, or something from the Muslim community, or any one of our various communities. And he was very impressive, and Katie said he could help this country if he had an education. So I'll fast forward a little story. It took us 6 years, and many of you who have dealt with INS, Immigration and Naturalization, to me they're the most offensive group of people in the United States. They're very difficult to deal with, and I had an extremely difficult time over 6 years getting this young man out to, I think, try to help him help his people. So you can tell by my chin being out what I think about INS, so if anybody wants free legal services for INS, I'm ready. This young man eventually came out and went, where did we go? Rockefeller. I don't know whether you remember him at all. We got him into Rockefeller, but then it was questioned because he went to really the only college in Sierra Leone, Forbay, in Freetown, and he didn't have any math or any statistics, and he was going to Rockefeller. And I pleaded that that was our responsibility, and I think you'll do very well. Well, a couple of years later, he graduated, and one of his professors said he was the finest student he had ever had. And he came to us about a month before 9/11 and spent 3.5 years with us and became our son. And we had chats about staying here versus going back because there was so many nice things here. He was over visiting President Obama and the World Bank looking for funds for Sierra Leone. And then another 1.5 years later, when he was vice president of the country, he came up and stayed a few days with us again. And he had a shot at being president last year, and I think that's still well within the realm of possibility. To me, and if you repeat this, it's only for this audience, he calls me chief. And I said, "You can't call a liberal Democrat chief." And he said, "It's okay, chief. I won't let anybody else know." But it talks about relationships and opening up. That flag opens up. That's what our country stands for. And if we just begin to close that, we lose all that we are that's singular and beautiful. And that's an opening response to all immigrants, to say, come. the Statue of Liberty with open arms. And it means go abroad and study and learn other cultures and be part of our greater community. So as I stand here, the internship program is something that's totally responsible locally for integrating ideas with young people and letting them see what's going on in our community and letting others see them and how talented they are. And to hear expressions that, boy, I'll give that person a job because they can really turn our programs around. We all know that. The internship program proves that. And so I salute you. I don't know whether I was asked. I was thinking, gee, why don't I have an intern? It might have been that summer is the worst time for the legislature because it's more thought and public policy, and maybe that's something we can do, into legislation for January. So it's kind of a staid environment. And I don't like interns following around a politician. I want them to be wrapped up in government work and doing things. But
We should talk.
Pardon?
We should talk.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I go out of, when I'm with you, I leave you on a cloud. And it's a cloud of hope, a cloud of, I'm around people who want to make a difference in our country. So I salute each and every one of you. I salute the program. I'm not so sure I don't know some of the interns' families. And I'm delighted to be able to present each one of them proclamations from the New York State Senate. Dr. Hussein, when he talks about he interacts with my office, I would present that in a different way. He calls my office and tells me what I'm going to be doing. And if you think that's funny, he has a persuasive way of doing things that's gentle, but thorough and commanding. Am I right? Yes. So I thank you for allowing me to be here with you. I hope that I continue to be invited, and 18 years as the Clifton Park supervisor, I think you might have come to my high school and spoke to me one night. So I'm just so happy to be here. So, and I know that whenever I stand between myself and lunch, it's time to sit down. Thank you.
Picture time, picture time.
So Phil Barrett has been gracious enough to receive that on behalf of Kevin.
No, I was very honored. Kevin emailed me from China and asked me to accept these for him, so I was very honored to do so.
Okay,